Alrighty, folks, we're here at the brand new Miami Springs Senior Center, and we're here with Doctor Victor Vazquez, former Miami Springs Councilman, who's also running, or now running again for Miami Springs City Council, seat 4. And appreciate you taking your time to join us. And it's a beautiful, just do a quick little scan around if you haven't seen. Our new Senior Center is absolutely gorgeous, and we're with a beautiful background here. But for today's purposes, we're here to speak with Dr. Victor Vazquez. Again, thank you for joining us. One of the things, you've been very gracious with your time. And you're officially the person we've interviewed who's running for office the most. So I want to thank you for making yourself available to the public and to the Miami Springs residents, and again for your gracious time and willingness to communicate with residents.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Anytime I get an opportunity to speak to our residents, whether it's knocking on their doors or seeing them at City Council or running into them at Milam's or anywhere else, it's always an honor and a pleasure because that's what I do.
For the benefit of those who may have just moved to Miami Springs or may not be familiar with your name,
yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, and your journey from where you were to our beautiful community of Miami Springs.
Absolutely. Well, I've been in the Springs for 12 years now, but I've been in Miami now for almost 20.
Okay.
I was born and raised in New York. My parents came from Puerto Rico. At the age of 18, I joined the United States Air Force to serve my country. And I have been serving since. My country, my community, and my home. I, along the way, became a professor of history. So I have a PhD from history from Temple University in Philadelphia, where I started to teach. And the last 17 years I taught was at Miami-Dade College, a great institution, a foremost important institution in the formation of all of our professionals in Florida. I moved to here, as I said, 12 years ago. Everywhere I've lived, I've been involved in my community, whether it's with the residents or neighbors, or as in Miami Springs, supporting the Boy Scouts because my son was a scout,
right,
and also became an Eagle Scout, so Troop 3-4. But he was also a Cub Scout, Pack 425. Supported the Girl Scouts in their endeavors. And I'm an active member of the American Legion Post 32. And I am the president of the War Memorial Refurbishing Committee, which is the war memorial that we have on Curtis Parkway.
Right.
And so although I retired from Miami-Dade College in 2021, I decided to run for City Council to continue that service.
Okay.
So I'm a person who takes care of his home and takes care of his family. And so this was just an extension of that, to take care of and serve the city that I've chosen for that. And I expect to be here forever, or at least until the man upstairs calls me. Yeah.
Well, that leads to my next question is, what do you love most about Miami Springs?
Wow. Well, first of all, the first thing that I love about, my sister used to live in Miami Springs.
Okay.
Passed away some years ago. And she lived down in the apartments in Royal Poinciana. So I was familiar with the city. As soon as I came to visit, I said, wow, this is an extraordinary place.
Yeah.
And then my wife fell in love with Miami Springs. And then we were fortunate enough to find a house that she loved and that I loved and our kids loved. I like this. I'm an urban guy, so I've spent most of my life in large cities. So, it was a place it's like an oasis in a large urban area.
Yes.
And that's what I liked about it. That's what I fell in love with it. That small town feel, the going to the businesses in the area, do my shopping.
Right.
A lot of my shopping here. And it's quiet.
Yes,
quiet.
sir.
It's quiet. And I like to keep it that way.
Yes.
I like to keep it that way for sure. Yeah.
So, what got you interested? You talk about you've always been in public service. What got you from, let's say, being as a professor and serving in the armed forces to getting into the political world? What was the bug date to say, I'm going to throw my hat into the political world?
Well, many years ago, I started thinking about the political process and really trying to engage people in participating in the political process. getting my kids registered, getting them to participate and do their civic duty. And as a professor of American history, of course, this is kind of an extension of who I am, and that elected officials are accountable, should be accountable, right? Because they represent communities, whether it's a smaller community, in the case of Miami Springs, or at the state level, or county level, or federal level. And so, oddly enough, I noticed something in 2019. So that year there was an election, and I was getting all ready to vote, and nobody ran against any of the incumbents. So there wasn't an election, and I thought that was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
Because I never lived in a place where all of the local government, right, was reelected by default, I guess. I guess on the one hand, it may have been a credit to them, but, I believe in the challenge. I believe everyone should get challenged. I have a challenger.
Sure.
That should be, voters should have a choice. They should be able to decide, a person A, a person B, a person C. So I believed, I said, wow, that was strange. But it wasn't until it got closer to 2021 that I decided to test the waters. One, I was retiring from my full-time job, so as a professor, and it's not like I was wanting to do something else, right? Because after 35 years in higher education, I was ready for a break. But I thought about it, looked at it, talked to friends of mine, colleagues of mine that I work with in the city. There were a couple of open seats, and I said, well, this might be the time to take that step to serve at that level. Right. And to bring that love of service that I have for my house, for my community, for my city, for my country, to the City Council of Miami Springs.
And during the last election, when you ran for council, you had a large majority vote. So the residents definitely supported you in the last run.
Yes.
Now since then, you threw your hat into bigger offices. So you decided to run for Miami-Dade County Commission, and again, you were always gracious with us, and you met with us in the past. So for those who may not be familiar, tell us a little bit about why you decided to run for County Commission.
I'm glad you raised that, because that's an interesting point that I wanted to talk about, and maybe clarify a little bit misconceptions that were out there, because I had no inclination and no thought of running for another office while I was in office. That's when I jumped in here, and when I was elected, and as you said, I got 70% of the vote in my race, solid majority. I was not thinking about running for anything else, but maybe re-election, and I haven't even made a decision.
Sure.
But, so a couple of things happened that made me think about the County Commission, District 6. It was while I was serving that I realized that Commissioner Rebecca Sosa was going to be leaving because she was term limited, because of some changes that were made in those laws sometime before I knew about it. Number one. Number two, she was a great commissioner.
She was great.
With this building that we're in, she did a lot of work and so many other things. And so, I thought about what's going to happen to Miami Springs, who's going to represent us in the county now that she's leaving after 20 plus years. And so I heard that Brian Avila, who was a state representative, lives nearby me, and was being term limited as a state representative, was going to run for the position. And I said, great. He's done a number of good things for Miami Springs in particular, and I thought that was that. Right. And then a short time later, I realized that he was not going to run for the position. He was going to run for a state senator. Right. And that got me thinking, okay, now what?
Yeah, I guess it was Manny Diaz was selected to the head of the Department of Education, and then that changed Brian's thinking, which then changed everybody else's thinking down the line.
So that raised number one, a concern, right? Who's gonna fill those shoes? They're big shoes to fill. And if Brian Avila wasn't going to do it, as he had told me he would, then because of those changes that Senator Diaz went to the state, and then he decided to go to the Senate. That's when I started thinking, okay, so what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do? And I thought about, well, you know, I am a sitting councilman. Never missed a meeting my whole tenure. You know, did all, you know, raised all kinds of issues and contributed a lot, I feel, in terms of the city, that perhaps I could contribute to the city in an even greater way, right? And bringing the issues of Miami Springs to the county commission,
Right.
and serve a district that has, you know, 6-7 times the number of people that we have in the city. And that's when I decided to throw my hat in the ring. It wasn't willy-nilly.
Right.
It wasn't something that I was expecting to do, but it made sense for me to bring the same kind of commitment to the city. Now, I do want to clarify that the campaign for county commissioner ran from the end of May to August,
Right.
which was the primary. That's
Yeah.
4 months, I think. And I never left city council for a minute.
Yeah.
I kept going to meetings
You were there all the way to November.
all the way to November.
To the required date.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't abandon what I was
Right,
doing.
right.
But to run for another position,
Yeah.
as an elected, state law requires that anyone who's serving an elected position, and while they're in that position, they want to run for another elected position, they have to resign. And it's
Yeah.
called
It wasn't a choice. You're required to resign.
Resign to run.
Yeah.
However, there was flexibility in the date.
Yeah.
So, you know, some people from the city who have run for other things, they resigned in May or earlier.
Yeah.
I decided to stay on and just keep working because I could choose. The latest date was November 22nd.
Right.
And so I left 4 months before my time was up. And of course, I didn't get elected
Right.
to county commissioner. So I'd like to continue the good work that I've been doing for the city. And hopefully the voters will understand why I did what I did.
Sure.
But I want them to also understand that I never left city council that whole time I was running.
Right.
I was attending to, and we had extra meetings, including budget meetings.
Yeah.
I attended, yes.
Well, now, to your point, there was a prior, and I don't want to mention names, but there was a prior council person who decided to run for, I want to say it was a county school board.
Yes.
And then we had actually two council persons who decided to run for county school board. Neither one made it, but one resigned early, as you said, and one stayed, you know, pretty close to the end as the same way that you did. And you stayed, you know, as much as you can to serve as long as you can. And now you have that opportunity to serve again for the city of Miami Springs, and you've thrown your hat.
Yes.
You know, let the residents decide.
Yes.
So definitely appreciate that. You know, now as you're running again for Miami Springs councilman, you have a different perspective than say when you ran the first time, and you have now you know a couple years under your belt serving on the dais.
Yes,
so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what are you most proud of in terms of your service on the city council?
I think there are a couple of things that I can point to, but the one that gave me the greatest satisfaction was that when I decided to run for city council, one of the things that I held as one of the most important issues that I wanted to address was the issue of revenues in the city and the business community. Right? I, at one time in my life, was a small business owner for about a couple of years. I know how difficult that is, and so I said I was going to run to see how we could revitalize our economic areas of the city. And so, as you said, when I was elected in April of 2021, one of the first things that I made sure that we talked about and we finally were able to accomplish was creating an economic and business development task force.
Yes.
Which recently completed its report, and it's been shared with City Council. And so I think that's a great accomplishment that we've done that. We've got a bunch of data, as was presented recently at an open forum, at a forum that City Council held right here in the Rebecca Sosa building. And I was pleased to hear all the different recommendations. And one of the things that I want to do in my second term is ensure that the city council implements the recommendations of that board.
Right.
And of course, I suggested to them that they prioritize. Of course, there were a lot of different recommendations.
Yes.
But I want us to prioritize to do two things. Number one, how do we help local businesses that exist right now?
Right.
What can we do? And secondly, what other businesses can we attract to the city? And one of the most important things I saw in that report was that the city create a position of a PR person,
Sure.
public relations person for the city, for the business community to go out and sell and promote the city. I think that's a tremendous idea, and I want to be there to lend all my support and knowledge
Right.
in that regard.
Excellent. There was, if I remember correctly, you were also involved in creating the, I don't know the exact name, but the 100-year anniversary board.
Yes.
As we
Yes.
approach our centennial.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit
Well,
about
as
that.
as you know, I'm a historian.
Yeah.
and also, I have been thinking about throughout my time in council that in the year 2026, our beautiful city is going to celebrate its centennial, its 100th anniversary. And what kind of celebration do we want to have? And so I presented it to council, and they said, well, come back with some ideas. And I looked at some of the centennial celebrations of cities similar to ours,
Right.
who, a couple of years ago had their centennial. And I brought back some ideas, and I said, listen, we can't wait till 2026 to organize this thing. We've got to have a commission of citizens and maybe some other experts who could help us. And so I proposed that we form a centennial commission, which was established right before I left the council, and I was able to name someone to that as well. And so I'm excited. I hope the citizens are excited because they've already started working. They're going to be reporting back to the council soon, within the next month or so. So stay tuned for that. But I can't wait to get back in there and help shape how we celebrate the city. So just a couple of things that we thought about. One thing is the date of August, I believe it's August 26, 2026, is the actual 100th anniversary.
Right.
And that's on a Sunday. So doing something that weekend,
Yes.
ending up with some fireworks, but also do some events beginning in January of that year.
Sure.
To get the people in the mood for celebrating this important milestone. So I'm very, very proud of getting that.
Yeah, it should be pretty fun also for that, the parade that year, the July 4th parade should be a big,
Should be one of the big
events, biggest events,
leading up to the celebration, yes.
Excellent. So now looking forward, we have a variety of issues. Some issues still remain from when you were in council. There are
Yes.
some new issues
Yes.
coming up. There's some new opportunities coming up. So when you think of the different issues, and I'm sure you've been probably going door to door and talking to different residents and residents who called you in the past, what do you see as some of the biggest issues that either residents are telling you or you see as your experience on council that are facing the city right now?
Well, one of the biggest issues for residents is there's always a concern of safety, even though we live in a really safe area, but there's always a concern because we are a transit city, right? We've got Curtis Parkway, which is a state road. We got a lot of traffic coming in this way. Royal Poinciana, north and south, the bridges, right?
Yep.
So we always have...
And 36th Street.
And 36th Street, which is our southern border. And so we've had some safety issues.
Right.
Relative to especially the area of Northwest 36th Street, particularly the hotels.
Yeah.
If you've been following things that have come out in the city's website and MiamiSprings.com, every now and then there's someone gets stopped for speeding, which is not uncommon in our city, and lo and behold, they don't have a driver's license, and the trunk is full of drugs or guns
and cash,
and we've had several situations. So, but on that subject of safety and the police department, what I've shared with folks that I've talked to along the way, whether it's in council or knocking on the doors or just meeting up with them, is that one of the challenges that the police department in Miami Springs is facing is that 40%, let me say that again, 40% of all calls to the police of Miami Springs come from the hotels.
Wow.
40%. And what does that mean? Well, we get no money from those hotels, right? They pay a bed tax to the county. So 40% of our resources that we've given the police department through the hiring of staff and cars and all the other things that they need is going to attending situations in the hotels, and we don't get reimbursed. There's no coverage. The citizens of Miami Springs are footing the bill for police protection to the hotels. And when I came in, I said I was going to try to do something about it because I found that to be outrageous. It's a big issue for the county.
Yeah.
And so I remember when Mayor Levine Cava was elected, in her first meeting she came to Miami Springs, I broached that subject with her because it's important for the citizens. And sometimes they will tell me, oh, I don't see a police car around here. Well, you know what? They might be in the hotels taking care of something that's really not our business, but it is because of the proximity.
Yeah.
And it's complicated because there was a shooting a couple of weeks ago over in Abraham Track at one of the hotels.
Yeah.
And so the police department not only has to respond to the call, arrest people, then there has to be a supervisor, a sergeant there, and then they had to leave 2 policemen there, of our policemen, policewomen, because it's a crime scene. And all that means is that they are not able to serve as one of them told me, we have a domestic violence situation, I can't respond because we don't have enough officers. They're all tied up in these situations. So I think that it's imperative on us to figure out a mutual agreement that would help bring those resources to the police department, relieve the citizens of having to pay for police protection for the hotels, and also sometimes the people at the hotels haven't been the friendliest neighbors. We had many problems with nuisance issues of people flowing into that eastern part of the city. And Councilman Walter Frazier and I, went to the city. We said we got to do something about this. I actually went with the neighbors. I saw people walking across, smoking drugs and creating all kinds of problems. And finally, we just put fences up and blocked.
Yes.
That was another accomplishment that I'm very proud of. And it's not that I'm into fences or whatever, but for those residents of the 600 blocks of Manola, all of these La Villa and all De Leon, all these streets, they were living with that because if you go there, those houses are right up on the fence, and the hotels are just right there. And so.
Yeah, there were a lot of complaints of people just kind of walking out and throwing garbage.
Yes, throwing
and
garbage.
Needles and just
we
all
had
sorts of
one
bad things.
lady on Manola Street that came out and had 2 young women in bathing suits laying down in her front yard. She brought that picture.
Oh my goodness.
To the Springs.
Wow.
And it turned out to be 2 tourists who were in the hotel. And they walked 100 feet and they saw this beautiful lawn. And said, hey, we're going to sunbathe right here. I mean, that's
my God.
Crazy stuff that, you say, wow. So anyway, we put a stop to that.
Well, we definitely appreciate it. I'm sure the residents in that area appreciate
Absolutely.
that sort of thing.
Yes.
So one of the things the new council will likely have to select is a new city manager. I was listening to the meeting last night, and it sounds like just the turnaround time to get enough candidates and to qualify, et cetera, will not be done within this council's time frame, which this council will end in April. So it seems like one of the things that the new council will have to do is finish that selection process. So that being the case, if you're on council, what are some of the priorities that you have or characteristics that you think are very important that you want out of the next city manager?
Well, the first thing I want to say regarding that selection, and I was at the meeting last night and listened to it and took some notes. Obviously, I didn't participate, but is that, I've had more than 30 plus years of experience as an administrator and working with, hiring people at mid-levels and high levels of different enterprises, and I know what it's like to do that. And so I think it's a big task for the city, for the council has to address that. And if I'm reelected, I'll be there to help finish the job. Manager Alonso indicated that he is retiring effective May 31st. That's just a couple of months now.
Yeah.
The city is also was presented with some consultants that do this kind of work that actually flesh out candidates and then provide the council with a number, maybe 3, 4, 5, for the council to interview and make the decision. So it seems to me that while it could be a lengthy process, it might not necessarily have to be a lengthy process, because if Alonso leaves on May 31st, it seems to me the council would want to have someone in place on June 1st.
Yeah.
Now, there's an assistant city manager that was talked about. She could do some of that work in transition.
Yeah.
This has happened before, but I encourage council to move swiftly. Tell the consultants what you want.
Yeah.
Tell them when you want the person on board, and then give them a list of all the qualifications. Clearly, we want people experienced in that kind of management,
Right.
Especially political management at the city levels, and similar to ours, and in many cities like that. Secondly, we want someone who has a strong understanding of budgets and resources. Obviously, they have an academic preparation that's going to be very important, and a number of years of experience. I know it's been a habit to hire from within,
Sure.
and sometimes that works.
Yeah.
Sometimes that works. So, but however the process is, and whoever ends up being there, that person reports to the mayor. But as a council, the council does the hiring, and the residents are going to have input on this. The process is going to be one that's open and transparent. There'll be opportunities for people to participate in this conversation. I wouldn't be surprised if council said, for a short period of time, as we've done before, is, hey, and now that we have this new way in which residents could report a problem,
Sure.
just a quick, what do we want? We want this, we want to see that in the next city manager. So it's a big task.
Yeah.
It could take longer than the time period that the council has before William Alonso leaves, but it's I'd love to be in there, and helping with that, and
Sure.
bring my experience to this.
And it looks like definitely whoever's selected, if this council will have an opportunity to have their opinion. I don't think that's going to be wrapped up with the current council. There's just too short a timeline to even get good candidates.
You're absolutely right. The present council leaves, or at least a couple of people leave by April 11th.
Right.
And it's they do that transition the same night. And so there'll be at least a couple of people, maybe 2 or 3, who knows,
Right.
on the council, which is then a learning curve, right?
Sure.
So I'm an optimistic person. Having done this kind of search myself many times, and actually having been a candidate on a couple of national searches,
Right.
I could tell you that it's doable in this time period, but we have to be diligent and really buckle down on giving the consultants very clear guidance and timeframes.
Excellent. As far as looking at future other improvements that you would like to see completed by the city of Miami Springs.
Listen, I am a big supporter and promoter of economic development and private enterprise, and that's why if the residents bless me with another term, I'm going to dive right in to pushing this more. Northwest 36th Street, as you mentioned, ideal place for some future development, mixed use properties, and I'm looking for every way we can to raise revenues for the city without raising taxes. So I'm proud of the fact that we lowered the millage 2 years in a row, and we're hoping to lower it even more as we move forward. But we've got to balance that with bringing in revenues that only businesses can do.
Now, speaking of, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, whether it's their contributions to the city in terms of taxes, but also contributions to the city in terms of the clients, right, the customers. You know, like I have my favorite thought on the development of Westward, for instance, in the area downtown, is that I would like to go down there, have dinner with my wife.
Yeah.
And then after dinner, walk to a place and maybe get some ice cream, and then say, "Oh, let's see what that new art gallery has," or or a bookstore. So that it's a place that attracts people for more than one reason.
Yeah.
Okay, and that means dealing with parking. I'm sure you would ask me about that. and as city manager William Alonso said last night. We have to deal with the fact that we're going to have to build a parking garage. But there also has to be some development. Hey, why couldn't we have small apartments on that second floor above those businesses? Those are families that would come in, presumably young families, right? But you got to have the parking.
Right.
We are going to be doing a parking study.
Yep.
And now that the time frame for the parking study has been extended because, as many people pointed out at the workshop where the economic
town hall meeting,
and the town hall meeting, how are you going to do a parking study when One Curtis Parkway has not opened,
right,
and Canal Street has not opened? So we don't know yet what impact those things are going to have on parking and on what time of the day.
Sure.
Right? Because right now, I go to Burritoville to get my wife some food because she loves that place. And I asked one of the owners, I said, how is this all affected? And she says, well, we get a lot of folks that come here to have lunch.
Right.
They come in from different places, they park, they have their lunch, and they take off.
Right.
And then there are those that come and pick up their lunch, and there's not that much parking.
No.
So I'm taking that to heart and thinking about what do we do? That's a way to help the business, right?
Well, you were talking about new tax sources, and so one of the big dreams for nearly 20 years has been annexation. So I think the most basic question, do you think annexation will happen? Will it become reality?
Let me answer it this way. I think it could happen, right? Because, you ask people that have been around here a long time and voted twice for it, right? They say, nothing's ever going to happen with that. We came pretty close to having it done. The city and city council, we did a lot of work in addressing concerns of the business owners in that unincorporated territory, just east of us. And we felt like we had addressed a lot of the concerns, particularly around physical and logistical things that the city would do, and building some sidewalks, having a police presence there, a substation, which we would need to pay for, right? And so forth, because I remember a business owner in that area saying that he called 911 one day, and because there is no city response, the closest officer from Miami-Dade County was in Sweetwater.
Wow.
And had to drive up here to attend the call. I don't remember the details of the call, but and it was set to be approved in county commission, and Medley got their piece approved.
Yes.
And Virginia Gardens and Miami Springs did not, and so we have a new county commissioner.
Right.
And so we're hoping that Commissioner Cabrera will be an advocate for this, and he is doing a study from his office, as I understand, with the business forces in that area to get their sense of it.
Sure.
We know Miami Springs wants it. The amount of money that could come into the city, we could cut our millage in half.
Right.
If that happened, and provide those services that those business men and women have. So I'm optimistic. It's not, it takes an effort.
Yeah.
Commissioner Sosa was behind us, but then some other commissioners, didn't vote. They were going to vote, and they didn't vote our way. So there's a lot of politicking that takes place at that level. Obviously, if I were on commission, but
learning a lot about that.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic that it could happen. but it may take a couple of years to get all the nuances where
Right.
everyone is,
On the same page.
on the same page. I think that most businesses in that area understand the benefit of it.
Right.
So,
Now, as far as
keep my fingers crossed.
as far as the voters, I may be speaking out of line here, but
Yeah.
I'll throw it to you. I feel that you understood the annexation position from the perspective of a Miami Springs and Virginia Gardens resident, and felt like, especially VG, which seems like they were at the same position that Medley was.
Yes.
In terms of just needed it to just one step forward, and it didn't take that one step forward. Maybe I don't want to speak out of
Missed
hand,
it
but
by 2 votes.
but no, wait, but just no. That next, that was Miami Springs, but VG was like ready to just needed it to get pushed forward by the
No,
by the
actually,
commissioner,
VG got approved, and then it was vetoed by the county mayor.
by the county mayor. But
Yes.
then there was an opportunity. My understanding is there was an opportunity to move it forward the same day that Medley was moved forward, and I get
Yes.
the feeling that if Councilman Vasquez was Commissioner Vasquez, it would have moved forward that day, and it wouldn't have been delayed.
Well, I certainly would have been a vote in favor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but in all fairness,
Yeah.
to Commissioner Cabrera, he just came in.
Yeah.
He's learning the curve, and
Yeah.
and he's getting up to date. And he's only been there now a couple of months.
Right.
And so, and I'm sure there are many other issues that his attention.
Yes.
It's a big county.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big district that there are a number of other cities that he needs to attend to. But I'm confident that this is, first of all, that the annexation is the way forward. It's a good thing to do, and that we will work out the kinks as other. And by the way, the objection of the mayor was that she needed some funding from us, to pay
Oh, she wanted the mitigation fees.
the mitigation fees.
And I think at the end of the day, even the Medley and VG were prepared to agree to that, and
Yes,
even Miami
yes,
Springs was
yes,
agreed
yes, and we were. We were.
to move
Yeah.
forward with that.
Yeah.
All right, so the election's coming up. I know there's early voting, there's the vote by mail, there's the election day itself. So when can people actually start voting?
Okay, so let me take one step back on that, because as many voters will recognize, the largest component, 58% of our voters, vote by mail.
Okay.
So this is a message to them.
Yeah.
If you vote by mail, your registration to get a ballot ended December 31st, 2022, because of legislation that was passed.
Right.
You have to redo it, right? And so
Right.
I did it online. They sent me an email from the commission,
Right.
and I clicked the link, and it took me 3 minutes to request that I be,
Re-registered to vote by mail.
And so now I will receive vote by mail ballots until the end of 2024.
Okay.
And which means then you have to re-register.
You have to basically renew every couple of years, I guess.
Yes,
Okay.
and so I think that a lot of folks don't know that, and
Right.
you need to do that, and I'm stressing that in my campaign, and I'm stressing that with folks as I talk to. There are a number of ways you could do it. You can vote by, you could request it by mail. There are a couple of ways to get re-registered.
Got it.
Right? Because, and you have to, I believe is March 20th to re-register, but early voting starts, vote by mail starts within the next 10 days.
Wow.
So those of us who will register are going to get our ballot.
Right.
Now, of course, you have to the day of election day to return it,
Right.
which I hope people don't do. Just fill it out, put it in the mail, and send it right back. And then you could track it as you do with FedEx products,
Right.
and the UPS and all that. You could track your vote, when it got there, when it was open,
Right.
and so forth. So that's the first thing I want to say. And so the second thing is that early voting will be Friday, March 1st, and Saturday, April 1st.
Okay.
And those who like to vote early, but they want to do it in person, but they don't want to wait till election day, can go to the city hall,
Right.
from 8 to 7, and you can leave and you can vote right there in the lobby area where they have it. The election commission will set it up.
Right.
And then finally, the most important day of all, right, which is the actual
Election day.
election day. It's Tuesday, April 4th, and that will be, and I'm going to be clear on this, it will be at the Country Club as it has been for the past several elections. people are asking about, it was still gonna be there because we got a major project in the golf course.
Right.
We're shutting down the golf course soon.
Right.
Because we're gonna take all the grass out and everything and redo it. And that's a project that has to happen every 20, 25 years.
Right.
And, you know, it's like your roof. You know, every 20, 25 years, you have to replace that roof. But that's not going to impact the parking and the voting machines that are going to be there in the country club.
Got it.
And again, that's, you know, voting from 8 to 7. And the beauty of it, if it all falls in place, like they did the last election, we knew within a half an hour the polls closing.
Yeah. So all the early votes are in by election day, and all the mail-in ballots, or most of the mail-in ballots are in.
Even more important, Nestor, is that some people don't know this, that Florida is one of the states that actually counts the ballots that come in by mail.
Right.
They just don't release the data.
Right.
And the early voting as well. That was why there were so many problems in 2020.
Yeah.
And so many people voted by mail, and, you know, those places were not accustomed to that.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that, you know, after the polls closed at 7 p.m. on April 4th, no, when it was in 2021,
okay.
within 20 minutes, you know, the city commissioner, city manager Alonso came out and read out the results because all those votes were already there.
Yep.
So it was just a matter of folding the election day votes.
Got it.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, I always like to ask this, well, two more questions.
Yes.
A couple more questions. One, anything else, you know, we've covered a lot of topics, anything else that you want to share with voters before Election Day?
Look, I know it's a big concern of many voters, and it was one of the reasons why I ran 2021, and it's in my platform again, which is a commitment to keep our green areas green, right? And continue to improve upon replacing trees that are fallen or that are old. I love the fact that we have green areas, and that we've expanded in our parks. We got the Reagan Park on the eastern side of Miami Springs. I go by there and it's families,
right,
which I love to see, families picnicking. Same thing on Curtis Parkway. And so it's to reiterate a commitment to that as we look at some development, that we never lose sight of the green areas and our parks and recreations, which I think is a big deal. And I wanted to say one last thing about running for county commissioner, because I've been asked that question. If you win again, are you going to run? And absolutely not. Okay. If reelected, I pledge to complete my term.
Got it.
You heard it here first.
There, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You know, I always like to ask folks, you know, this final pitch is, why should residents come out and vote for Victor Vazquez?
Proven leadership. I've been involved in community service and military service. I still serve the military through the American Legion. I have a track record, proven track record, of being able to produce and work with you know, basic, you know, find basic answers to needs, right? And not to get involved in too much of the minutia, just getting things done, right? And that from my service in the military on down is, you got a mission, you got an objective, get it done. How you do it is going to depend on conditions,
right?
And sometimes you think you have the answer to it, and you're going to have to improvise some to get it done. So what the city gets with me is someone who cares about Miami Springs. I love it here, just like I care for my house and my family and the property that I have. I have that same care for the whole of the city of Miami Springs. Secondly, I'm committed to doing the best that I can to put all my years of experience in administration and service to the city. And we can't get everything done at one time, but I hope if you look at my track record and the things that I voted on, I think you'll be satisfied that I voted every single time something's come up for the police department, whether it's higher or 100% voting record supporting the police department and our men and women in blue, and that folks know where to find me. You know, I could get calls and just I'm an approachable person. You know, I'm an active member of Blessed Trinity. I'm a member of the Spanish choir. My wife is a reader and a member of the choir. My son Victor is an altar server. We have a spiritual commitment to our community, and that's the kind of person that you're going to have. And if I am reelected, and I hope you give me that opportunity again, that I'll be able to show you even more things that we can do.
Excellent. Victor, and Lee, in that, in terms of contacting you, connecting you, what's the best way for people to reach out and learn more about you?
Okay, so the one thing they could do is to learn more about the campaign.
Yes, yes.
Is they can go to www.votevictorvazquez.com.
So it's votevictorvazquez.com.
Just remember, votevictorvazquez.com. That's
Got it.
going to take you to my page.
Got it.
It's going to have more information about what I've done,
Sure.
and what I'm going to do, and what kinds of things that I've accomplished. They're all there, and I hope folks would do that. But in addition, veteran712020 at gmail.com. Veteran712020 at gmail.com. Shoot me an email.
And he does reply to those emails. I've emailed him there many times. That is his email, his personal email address. And Victor, again, we want to thank you. You've joined us now. This is our third interview together, and you've always been very gracious with your time. We really appreciate it and your service to our community. And so we're very happy to be able to share this and let, at the end of the day, get voters to meet the candidates and give them the power, the democratic process. And come election day, the most important thing, folks, is go vote. Learn about the candidates.
Let's go vote, because if you don't vote, then your voice is not that it's not necessarily heard, but it's the weight of your vote.
Yes.
That brings in the candidates that you want to see there, right? Make sure you do that, and it's a great honor to serve. From the moment I was 18 years old, raised my hand and swore allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. I've never taken that back. They never asked me to take it back when I left the military.
Yeah.
That is my commitment, and I appreciate the service that you provide, Nestor.
Well, thank you.
Of interviewing the candidates. And I remember I voted on one election, a special election to fill a vacant city council seat. I actually learned a lot by looking at the 4 interviews and getting more information about them, but then I could search.
Yes.
Yeah.
Victor, again, we really appreciate it and thank you for your service, and wish you the best of luck here in the election. Again, for folks, go out and do your research, watch the videos, read online, and vote.
Yes, come out March 9th. The Women's Club is doing a candidates forum.
Oh, that's right.
At the Rebecca Sosa Center. So
Perfect.
we're all going to be there. That's the opportunity to ask questions. And the Women's Club is actually soliciting questions from the folks.
Excellent. Thank you so much,
Look forward
Victor.
to seeing you. Thank you. Thank you, Nestor.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
God bless.